our Sunday sitting group once again. Welcome to InsightLA. I am the founding teacher, Trudy, and really happy to see you all this morning. For those of you who may be new, who may be here for the first time, we spend about a half an hour in meditation and, I don't know, roughly another half hour of talking, teaching, which I will offer, and then we just divide it into these three slices, and then another roughly half hour of our having a chance to have some conversation together and some dialogue together. And at that time, you can have any questions or reflections you might have. You can raise your hand, you can put them in the chat. And Caroline, who's here, Caroline is volunteering to be our moderator today. Thank you so much, Caroline, for that. So let's begin by meditating together. Just find the posture that's right for your body. You can close your eyes. You can lower your gaze. You can turn your back like Bernard does, whatever way you like to meditate. And I'll ring the bell to begin. And I encourage you, when you hear the sound of the bell, to just listen to the sound all the way to its vanishing point. It's just a good way to enter into the quiet of sitting together. And I like to begin by taking a few deep breaths, just breathing in the aliveness of this moment, and breathing out, relaxing. Another deep breath in. And as you breathe out, releasing any tension. And one more time. Just relaxing into exactly how it is for you right now. I think we'll begin this meditation with offering some loving kindness to the body. This is a practice I do if I wake up during the night, if I ever have trouble going back to sleep. This really helps. Just very simple well wishes for all the parts of the body. We've done this before together. We'll do it for the first 10 minutes and then rest in the silence. And all you need to do is just silently repeat the phrases of well-wishing or blessing as you move your attention through the body. And bringing attention to the region of the head, the scalp, the face, the ears, the jaw, May my head relax and be at ease. May my whole face relax. May my head be happy, content. And then moving attention to the neck, the sides, the front, the back of the neck, the throat, windpipe. May my neck relax and be at ease. And then shifting attention to the shoulders. And just lifting the shoulders and then letting them drop. May my shoulders relax and be happy. Free from tension, at ease. And then moving the attention down the arms, both arms. Just feeling the upper arms, the elbows, the forearms and wrists. May both of my arms relax and be happy. Then moving attention into the hands, the palm of the hands, the fingers and thumb, the space between the fingers, the back of the hands and the knuckles. May each of my hands relax and be at ease. May both hands be happy. And then bringing attention up to the front of the body, the chest area, heart and lungs and rib cage. May my chest be open and happy. And then moving down past the diaphragm and the belly and the lower abdomen, whole lower part of the front of the body. May my belly, my abdomen soften and relax. And then tuning into the back of the body and sensing the upper back, the middle back, the lower back. May my upper back relax and be happy. Maybe letting the shoulder blades drop and be at ease. And moving the attention through the middle back to the lower back, where so much tension is often held. May my whole back relax and be happy. May my spine be strong and at ease. Then moving attention to the sit bones, the bottom, the whole area where you sit, literally the seat of consciousness. May my bottom relax and be happy. And including the genitals, may my genitals be peaceful, peaceful and content. And now sensing the hips. May my hips be free from judgment and relax. And moving to the thighs, the femurs, quadriceps, hamstring, the whole thigh. May my thighs relax and be at ease, free from judgment, happy. And the knees. May my knees be healthy and strong. And the lower legs, the calves and shins, and ankles. May my lower legs relax and be happy. And now feeling the feet, the soles of the feet, the toes, the tops of the feet, the heels, the arches, the whole foot. May my feet relax and be at ease. May my feet be happy. And then just sensing the whole body, appreciating this body. May my body relax and be at ease. And you can continue moving the energy through a scan, relaxing the body, offering wishes for happiness, relaxation, peace, and ease. And as we continue to practice in silence together, just noticing how it is for you, breath by breath, moment by moment, as we sit together. So this morning, I'd like to talk a little bit about working with anger. It's a really powerful energy in our lives, and um, it's actually one of the main energies that we deal with in this human life. And I've been reflecting on it and just want to share some reflections with you. Reflections on the way that anger is talked about in the classical teachings in Buddhist psychology and philosophy and the sutras, and also sort of how we work with it in our present day practice. So traditionally, the way that anger, what the Buddha said about anger, he gave a series, in a long sutra, he gave a series of examples of people who might seem, on the surface, have a great reputation. They seem like just lovely people, until they are crossed. And so he started with that sort of mild example of somebody who is really an employer who's very nice until her employee doesn't do what she's supposed to do. And the employee decides to test and see what the boss is really made of. Like, is the boss just nice and peaceful and sweet because I do what I'm asked to do? What happens if I don't? And so the employee doesn't do what they're supposed to do, and the boss gets really mad. And actually, in the text, it's a slave and an owner of the slave, of an enslaved young woman. But we can just translate that into employer and boss. I mean, employee and boss. And then in this example, at one point, the boss, who has such a beautiful, lovely reputation all in the neighborhood and everything, gets so mad that she hits her over the head with a rolling pin and actually, makes a cut in her head. So we go from that kind of example of, and we all know this, at least I do in myself, and I trust you do too, that under the right circumstances, I can be loving and serene. Under different circumstances, I can be, what did Jack say last night? Grumpy. Let's just put it that way. I'm not hitting him over the head with a rolling pin. We're not at that point, but you can, the disposition changes according to circumstances. And so there's a series of examples all escalating in the level of anger like that until this one. And I'm quoting monks. And in this case, that's all of us, people who are practitioners. Even if bandits were to carve you up savagely, limb by limb, with a two-handled saw, even then, you would not let your heart get angered, even at that, if you are following these teachings. Even then, you should train yourselves. Our minds will be unaffected. We will say no evil words. We will remain sympathetic with a mind of goodwill and with no inner hate. And then it goes on, we'll continue to offer metta to these folks who are sawing our limbs off. And then the Buddha goes on to say, this will be for your long-term welfare and happiness, because your minds will be unaffected. You'll say no evil words. You'll remain sympathetic to that person's welfare, et cetera, et cetera. And this is how you should train yourselves. Well, I don't know about you. That's a very tall order. So that's one extreme, the simile of the saw, that even if somebody's sawing you up into bits, you should be wishing them well. And And then there's all these other texts that say, essentially what they're saying is that a moment of anger can destroy a lifetime of practice. It's very extreme. That's how destructive anger is seen to be. And the way that I understand those teachings is that we need to make a distinction between the feeling of anger and how we express that anger. So the feeling of anger in and of itself, it's like any other feeling. It comes and goes, a cloud in the sky, and arises and passes away. And in our meditation, we can have that experience often, that brings equanimity. But these teachings are based on how we express the anger that we feel. Because too often, what happens is when mindfulness is not strong, or maybe there's no mindfulness at all, people aren't even practicing, the feeling of anger leads to the expression of anger, expressions that are harmful speech, harmful actions, just causing harm. And, but I feel like in Western tradition, the Greeks, for example, or Western psychology, anger is seen as also a positive force, that it's a noble emotion. It's about standing up for yourself. It's about having self-respect. It's about speaking the truth and rectifying harmful circumstances and things like that. And it's interesting to me that the anger at social justice to prevent harm, the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, these great spiritual figures of our time, they don't even call that anger. That's not anger, because that's for a good cause. So that's interesting too. And in working with anger, the first step, of course, is mindfulness, is knowing that we're angry. And it sounds so obvious, but it really isn't. Because if you're not used to recognizing and acknowledging, those first two steps of the RAIN, working with difficult emotions practice, are recognizing and acknowledging or allowing. It's easy to overlook. It's easy to say, well, angry, I'm not angry, especially if I have an image of myself as a sweet, kind person or a spiritual person. How could I? Yeah, I'm not angry. I just didn't come to our appointment because I was busy, and I just didn't let you know because I don't know, I kind of forgot, right? I'm just using that example because that's actually how I learned to recognize when I was angry, and I didn't know it. In my early 20s, I went to therapy, and I would sometimes just skip my appointment and not let my therapist know. And and he would take it up with me the next time and say, well, were you angry about something? I was like, no, I wasn't angry. But invariably I would discover, yes, I was angry. There was something that was said, there was something that came up. So first is learning to acknowledge when we're actually angry. And I heard a teaching, just brilliant teaching. It was shared actually in the context of a conversation by one of our InsightLA teachers named Alison Pimentel, who's a very accomplished psychologist and teacher at InsightLA. And she took Mr. Rogers. Some of you are probably too young to even know who Mr. Rogers is, but you might have seen the movie about Mr. Rogers. And if you didn't, I highly recommend it. Mr. Rogers was a hero to my daughter when she was little. She would sit there when she was 2 years old, and he would say hi, and she'd say hi. He's very real to the little children who see him on the screen, because he had such a beautiful way of interacting with children. They felt brought into his presence and would totally forget that they were watching a screen. So Mr. Rogers actually has a song that he wrote called "What Do You Do with the Mad That You Feel?" And Allison did something very beautiful with this song. But first, I'm going to invite Caroline to, can you put it on the screen so we can see him singing?
I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Share sound.
And you just pretend you're little.
All right, can you see it?
Yep.
Perfect.
Use toys in their play about their feelings. For instance, do you ever use your toy to help you with your angry feelings? What do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could fight? When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong and nothing you do seems very right, what do you do? Do you punch a bag? Do you pound some clay or some dough? Do you round up friends for a game of tag or see how fast you go? It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead and think. This song, I can stop when I want to, can stop when I wish, can stop anytime. And what a good feeling to feel like this and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a woman, and a boy can be someday a man. That's right. Doesn't it feel good when you're just about to do something that you know is wrong and you decide to do something else, something that won't hurt you or anybody else? Doesn't that feel great? You know you're really growing then. Sometimes.
Okay, thank you so much, Caroline.
Glad it worked.
Now, the last two lines, I generally don't quote because he was, he's singing from a time before we had awareness of non-binary and other gender identifications about, the girl becoming a woman and so forth. But I love that song, and I find it actually very helpful, especially when he's about to throw the block. And this is what Allison did that I wanted to share with you. She took a sutra on wise effort. It's called the Discourse on the Analysis of the Truths. And in this discourse, the Buddha poses a question. And you can ask yourself this question. You can look at, as I'm talking, your own pattern of relationship to anger, fear of anger, the childhood messages you might have gotten about anger. But in this sutta, the question is posed, what is right effort? And Allison says, what do you do with the mad that you feel when you feel so mad you could bite? What is wise effort in that situation? And the sutta answers, here the monk, of course, that's each one of us in this context, arouses their will and strives to prevent the arising of evil and unwholesome mental states that have not yet arisen. As Mr. Rogers says, it's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong. The monk arouses the will and strives to eliminate evil and unhealthy mental states that have already arisen. I can stop when I want to. I can stop when I wish. I can stop any time. So then the monk arouses his will and strives to generate wholesome mental states that may not be present yet, may not have yet arisen. And what a good feeling to feel like this and to know that the feeling is really mine. You can arouse these, we can generate these states. The monk arouses his will and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have already arisen. So when we're in a good place, how do we, strengthen that? Develop, increase, cultivate, and perfect them. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can, that helps us increase and strengthen these wholesome states of mind. And this is called wise effort. So I just thought that was completely brilliant. looking at Mr. Rogers and the Four Wise Efforts from the classical teachings and the suttas. And I think, for all of us, the abandonment of anger, that's a great idea when we can do it so that we don't cause harm. But what mindfulness does and what it helps us do is to see the arising of the emotion. And when we don't act on it, for example, when we're meditating and we're not going to act out and do something that's not, we're not going to get up and just do something. We're going to sit because that's our practice, to sit with whatever is arising, and we get to see what comes up. And what happens if we don't act on it? Well, eventually it will pass away. And it's not suppressed this way. When it arises, we feel the feeling, we feel it in the body, we notice the stories that it generates in the mind and the heart. We feel it. And so it's not being suppressed, it's being allowed. Sometimes we actually immerse ourselves totally in the feeling, not resisting it at all, not deliberately choosing to immerse, but if it's there and it's strong, we can be immersed, but also keeping the mindfulness, that slice, of awareness that knows, okay, this is anger. This is what it is. This is what it feels like to be a person who's mad, and in Western, in Western psychology, there's a whole nother dimension to working with anger, which is exploring the anger. And like some of the questions that I asked before, looking at how anger was treated in your family. What kinds of messages did you grow up about anger? And if you were angry. And also looking at, anger in the relationship to assertiveness. And we explore here too, we explore the anger, and here too, meaning in our meditation practice, we explore the anger and we see what it has to show us. We don't just try to suppress it and make it go away. It doesn't usually work anyway, even if we do try to do that. And often what anger teaches us is that underneath that emotion is another emotion, and it's usually fear. We usually get angry at whatever scares us, or it's hurt that we've been disrespected or devalued in some way. We can see the history, we can see the origin. But in order to be able to do that in meditation, we have to stay present long enough to be able to tolerate. We have to be able to stay with it and tolerate it long enough to see what it has to teach us. And that's why we practice, to learn how to do that. And then we can shift to what might be an active or constructive expression of that anger. And we get clues to this, our sensations in the body, the thoughts the stories that are unfolding in the mind, when the mind starts to go wild in certain ways, like, yeah, this is anger. And I'm very grateful to my first teacher, the Zen master, Reverend Sung San, the Korean Zen teacher, because he used to say to us, we would confess being angry because thought that was, a bad thing. And he would say to us, well, anger is truth. What's coming up in this moment is true. So anger is truth. Whatever's coming up, and it's the truth of this moment. It's not necessarily the truth of the next moment, but it's truth of this moment. And there was something so non-judgmental, so accepting about that. It was really, really helpful. It was very helpful. And it's also, I think, especially important for people who've been abused or been marginalized in the culture, in the society, to become familiar with these energies, because otherwise they can turn into depression. They can turn into self-blame. We talked about it a little bit last week, they can turn into internalized oppression. And that can manifest in the inability to set boundaries, to set limits that you need to protect yourself and feel safe. My granddaughter, who's a freshman in college, is living with a bunch of girls. They're not allowed in the dorms. They're all together in an apartment. They're actually quarantining right now. And one of the girls has a habit of going out with people that she meets on Tinder and doesn't really know. And one time she came back really upset and sobbing and had had a very difficult experience. And, the other girls are trying to convey to her that she has a right to say no. It's a little shocking to me that they don't know how to say no, but I understand. I'm not sure I did at that age either. I'm not sure if you did, but being able to connect with the energy of anger, of knowing when we are being maybe disrespected, devalued, or treated poorly, is so necessary in order to be able to set a healthy limit and boundary and be protected and safe and stay safe. And it's also really important not to go too soon into forgiveness, because that can be what we call a spiritual bypass, because it's much more pleasant to feel forgiving than to feel enraged. It just is. And but it's also if we forgive too fast, again, we may not learn that lesson of what is a wise use of anger in protecting oneself, in keeping oneself safe, and also keeping oneself safe from causing harm. Being aware when we're angry and we might lash out at somebody, we might do something that we regret later. So that anger can really help. It can empower us, and it can help us protect ourselves, but it can also help us protect others, either from ourselves or from others. So, working with anger is a lifelong task. And all we have to do, honestly, it's so depressing, really. I think of that teaching that you hear parents teaching their little kids, to use your words when you're angry. You've maybe said it yourself. And I just think if only heads of state would implement that learning. I look at what's going on in Myanmar and I don't want to even name all the spots in the world, but if we could all learn what Mr. Rogers teaches and turn the anger into something that actually supports our well-being, and that we learn we can stop, we can, and this will contribute to the well-being of others, and to hold that vision of a world. I still, we're in the thick of it, so many of our organizations right now, but I still hold the vision for, at least for our Dharma communities, which is the world I travel in mostly, that we can have a harmonious, multiracial, multi-class, very diverse and inclusive and equitable community, although I know it requires patience, and that patience and understanding, it may take time, may take more time than I wish it would take. That's something that I know for myself I need to cultivate. And then for yourself, I'm just curious, how do you channel the anger that you feel into things that are maybe more constructive? And how do you see the difference between anger and assertiveness? Are you aware of the messages that you received about being angry when you were growing up, and how those messages might still be determining how you feel about yourself and others in relation to anger? I think these are all really fruitful areas for us to explore in our practice. And now, I just want to read you as in closing of this talk. This is from Joanna Macy. And it is she calls it meditation in this time of war. And she actually wrote this, I think, at the time of the Iraq War, but there are so many wars always going on. I think it's always relevant. And she says, when we feel such grief as this, there's a temptation to fold, to shut down. So this is a meditation on not shutting down, that we can let the grief stretch us instead and open us wider to the great powers of life. We own our sorrow and let it connect us with all those who suffer, with the herders and farmers and townspeople now under bombs, with the animals and birds of the desert, with the very stones of our ancient land. We own our shame and let it reveal our connections with the weapon makers and generals and politicians whose greed for profits and power lead people into this dark way of war. We own our anger and let it link us to all who are betrayed, all from whom the war makers would divert our gaze. The hungry and houseless in our cities, the children whose future we prepare. We own our fear, our dread of what's in store for us. Let it remind us of the fear that walks the streets of war and hides in the hearts of our warriors. We own our weariness and let it connect us with our ancestors, tired too, as they struggled forward through countless ordeals in oppression and exiles and marches. We connect with their endurance because they did not give up. Though hard to bear, the sorrow and shame, the anger and fear and fatigue, each is a gift, for each can bring into focus our deep, invisible interconnections in the web of life and lift us out of our narrow selves and bring us into community across space and time. Each can open us to the boundless heart. Though found through pain, this heart is real. That boundless heart is real. It is the ground of all healing. So this is what I want to share with you this morning. And now it's your turn. I'm open to hearing what you might like to share and or any questions that you may have about your practice. It doesn't have to be, in relation to what was said this morning, but whatever is coming up for you in your practice and experience that you might like to share with us. Okay, so I just see a question in the chat that I want to answer right away, Caroline. Is there a suggestion to help kids and teens stay with the anger? I don't know that it's appropriate to try to help kids and teens stay with the anger. I feel like learning to be aware of the anger and constructive ways to redirect and use that anger is more important for them than to stay with it, especially with the teens who are immersed in this toxic culture of social media, where there's just so much anger and it's expressed so differently than when people are person to person. It's just 1,000 times worse online, whether it's adults or teens. And then the next question, do we always have to forgive someone else? Can we just accept that something wrong occurred and take care of ourselves to move forward? Of course. If you can do that, that's the best. Does forgive mean it's okay? No. Forgiving is not condoning. There's a big difference. That's a great question. We can forgive something that is even unforgivable, but we can do it to release our own hearts. Wow, lots of questions coming up in the chat. And I don't see any hands up. Okay, so Charles. Yeah, look in the chat. My belief is that as long as you hold on to only to your anger and resentment, it only harms you. It's like taking a poison pill, expecting it to harm the other party. Yes, and that's an example that's also used in the classic texts, Charles, like drinking. And they say it in the 12-step program too. It's like hanging on to anger and grudges and resentment. Hanging on is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, the one you're angry at.
I have a comment, a
Please.
question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Marguerite. I'm actually living in Michigan for grad school, but I love InsightLA. So thank you.
I'm so
for
happy you're
having me.
here, Marguerite.
Yes, I'm in Ann Arbor, University of Michigan. So, but yeah, I was wondering, I was really grateful that you talked about self-blame because I struggle with anger. And I think that that's something that I deal with. I tend to have excessive guilt. So I was just wondering if you could sort of maybe elaborate on like self-blame and sort of like ways to confront that
Yeah.
might be healthier.
Yeah. Because guilt, we make a distinction, you may know this, Marguerite, but we make a distinction in these practices between guilt and remorse, whereas guilt is painful. It's really, like you said, it's an expression of self blame, even sometimes self-hate. And whereas remorse is pretty healthy. When we've done something that we know, we threw that block, we couldn't stop ourselves, even though, yes, as Roger said, it was a good idea. We weren't able to stop ourselves in that moment. And so then what? Having some remorse, feeling, making some amends, apologizing, these are healthy things to do. So we make that distinction. And Caroline, can you mute somebody's not muted, and we're hearing some background noise. And then, thank you. And then the other thing, Marguerite, is that I find that the loving kindness practice is actually a good antidote to the judgment, self-judgment, blame, anger at yourself. And one thing that I've done and that I do often when I'm teaching the loving kindness practice, there's a sequence of categories where you grow your love first from the people who are easy to love and then to the ones that are harder to love. And when you get to that category of working with the difficult person, just substitute working with a difficult part of yourself. Like, how do you hold the part of yourself that gets you into trouble? Do you know what I mean? How do you treat her? Do you just get mad at her or spank her metaphorically, like maybe was parents did that or something? Or can you hold her with a little tenderness and be curious? What's going on? What's going on? Why is this so upsetting? Why am I so mad? Because there's a good reason. It's never not. Now, the reason may be rooted in the past more than the present. Sometimes the things that make me the maddest, they're not that bad in the present, but they trigger something from the past that really was hard for me. So those are just some ways that I think you can soften and open your heart to the part of you. It's just a part of you. It's not all of who you are, but it is a part of you that is asking to be seen and maybe understood and treated with a little more tenderness,
Oh, thank you. I really needed to hear that today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for asking.
Hi, I see that Bob has had his hand up for a little bit. Bob, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Okay,
Thanks.
and I'll come back to your chat question too, Tracy.
Thanks for the topic, Trudy. I was just wondering, I was thinking about so-called just wars, like World War II, US intervening in the genocide in Bosnia. There may be others. I even thought about our conversation about killing rats. I just wonder what the Buddhist perspective is on so-called just wars when you're intervening to prevent a lot of killing.
Well, I think I talked about this a while ago, that the Buddha definitely, I think it came up when somebody was talking about, we shouldn't really bring political things into this space. And I was saying, well, the Buddha actually was an anti-war activist in his own day and in his own way. He definitely tried to prevent wars, talked to the kings, on both sides. And in one case, he was able to prevent a war that could have wiped out the kingdom that he came from. In a second case, he couldn't. I don't know specifically about just wars. Why are you asking? Where is this coming from in you, Bob?
Well, it just seems there's a lot of, I mean, that's a topic I've heard discussed many times with regard to pacifism and say World War II. And I just, I haven't investigated enough maybe of what the preponderance of the Buddhist teachings are on this, but I just wondered what your thoughts were about
I
it.
haven't either, but I think that the closest thing that I have read is what I said earlier, that actually the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, these people that we really revere for being examples of what's possible in this practice. Thich Nhat Hanh from his experience with the Vietnam War, and the Dalai Lama living through the genocide of the Tibetan people. And, these folks who've really worked with these energies of anger, you can imagine. And they both have said that when anger is directed toward rectifying injustice, it's not the same as the anger that we have to, let go of because we're about to throw a block at somebody. That's the best I know.
Thank you.
Not that much, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to Tracy's question in the chat and then Meredith. So Tracy said she was very rattled by a family member's anger in her work as a medical social worker. Something went wrong at the hospital, and in spite of your good efforts, Tracy, trying to offer some compassion and understanding and empathy, somebody got really mad. And I love that you said I became uncentered. Yes, that's exactly what happens. We become uncentered, away from our center of calm and being able to take a deep breath. And then the question is, what could have helped that situation so that you didn't feel like you had to shut down for hours? And it sounds like you actually worked with it pretty well. You did what Mr. Rogers suggested, right? You pounded a pillow. You didn't have any Play-Doh or clay, but you pounded a pillow and then you shut down. And I think that mindfulness would help you accept that you needed to shut down and protect your heart. So that it wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if it would change, but usually when we accept something that's happening that we don't like, we can let it go faster. It's so counterintuitive, it just seems so much that if we would hang on to it, by accepting, yes, I'm shut down right now. This made me so upset. It just shut me down. And by bringing some tenderness to that state of feeling the heart being so shut down, the kind of tenderness that understands, the same kind of compassion and empathy that you offered to others when something went wrong, but just to offer that to yourself. Something went wrong. Somebody did not accept your consolation or soothing and got angry and blaming instead. And that's painful. So just some loving kindness as well as mindfulness, just some loving awareness, bringing a little tenderness and softening to just that state of being shut down, that the heart shuts down to protect itself. And then you become the protector. And that can sometimes help the heart open a little bit more, like Joanna Macy was saying. in her poem when she says, you know, it can lift us out that when we're able to feel connected in that moment. This is what it's like to be shut down. This is what it's like to be a human being whose heart has shut down to protect herself. It brings us into community across space and time, connected to any being who's ever had their heart shut down. And then, you know, it may shift or it may not, but your experience of it will shift, and how you're relating to yourself as being shut down will shift. And just that is a huge release. So I hope that's helpful. And Caroline, maybe you can call on Meredith next.
Yeah, Meredith, if you want to go ahead and share, so you've had your hand up for a minute.
Thank you. I would like that. Let's see. You've already answered quite a lot of what is on my mind around anger. I appreciate talking about anger. I guess it's a pattern. You have a behavior which started when I was little, that I have a hard time holding anger in my body. I can know I'm angry. Sometimes I can hold it, look at it, understand how I want to express it. That's best. And but if I don't take the time to do that, I repress it and forget that I'm angry. When I was young, when I was angry, well, the false belief that I still hold is it doesn't matter if I'm angry. It doesn't make any difference. I think that came from being physically threatened when I was angry. And I still connect being angry. I think I know what it's on. Being angry with fear of abandonment. And my guess is I'm learning how to be angry. And that how do I say, let's see, differentiating my anger in the moment from, or even old anger, it doesn't matter, but from my feelings of being rejecting. I
Right.
don't need you.
It's really great what you're talking about, because I think what you're talking about is sort of internalizing the way that you were treated when you were young. And, it's so common for parents to withdraw love and approval when kids are angry. And then what happens is we withdraw love and approval from ourselves when we get angry. We just take that inside. And so you start to abandon yourself when you're mad and get down on yourself instead of being curious, what's up and how can I handle this and how can I address this and what would be helpful, constructive questions. So I think you're naming something important, Meredith. And I just want to encourage you. You can be a good parent to yourself now. You know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sherry, if you want to go ahead and share, and then we'll have Sarah.
Hello. I wanted to ask a question, Trudy. It's a little bit about what is the focus, and I know sometimes when we meditate, we're focusing on the breath or a different anchor. And then like in MBSR, we did the choiceless awareness, which is opening. So today, when we were doing the loving kindness for our bodies, I found myself also connecting that with a very similar meditation that you've done with us about thank you for the different body parts. So I was doing loving kindness and thank you. And then when I got to the lower abdomen and I'll just say like womb and ovaries, and I was seeing the picture that you sent us about the birth of your niece, your niece giving birth. And so and then I went to like interconnection. We're also interconnected. And then I was like, oh yeah, and we're born as women with our little eggs in us, like as little girls. And so I was like, wow, this is so awesome and it's so cool. And I was thinking about my children and me as a little girl having them in my body. And then I was like, wait, I'm supposed to be meditating on something. These are thoughts, these are images. So I just got I loved it, and I'm not gonna give it up because it was but it was just kind of like, it was in the moment because I experienced it now, but you get my question kind of.
Yeah, we do. It's beautiful because what you were having insights, that's what you're describing.
Okay.
But insights then express themselves in words. We have an insight, but then
Yes.
it expresses itself in words. And then the words can sometimes get us carried away. And that's what happened to you. And then you were mindful of it. You realized, oh my gosh, I'm carried away now. And it was, and what's really cool about that, Sherry, is that it's really hard to notice when we're carried away by pleasant, spiritual, expansive thoughts. It's pretty easy to notice we're carried away when the mind is going, taking a descent into something negative, right?
Yes.
So that's really good practice. Thank you for.
Thank you for the picture and the story of your niece giving birth.
Thank you.
I wanted to share that. So is your niece Maria? Is that how you pronounce her name? From the email? Sorry.
Maria.
Yes. So I was gonna really quick. I was gonna share my best friend from college. Maria was her midwife. So when I saw the email, I was like, oh my God. My best friend lives in the Bay Area. My best friend from college in Massachusetts. We went to school in Massachusetts. I was like, Helia, this is your midwife.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Trudy.
Her baby. Yeah, a year ago.
That is beautiful. I thank you so much for telling me that.
Yeah.
I should tell Maria's mother. She'll be really happy.
Oh yeah, I'll message you her name. So
thank you. Okay.
Sarah, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, and I think this will be the last one for today as we wrap up.
Well, then Greg will get yours next week. I promise.
Sarah, can you unmute yourself?
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and see you.
I'm really angry with my family because they're being pretty cold-hearted, in my opinion, about my dad's death because I can't go out there because of COVID. And so I'm feeling frustrated and disconnected and resentful of them because they're not being very supportive, but I know it's up to me. I just don't know what to do with the frustration and the anger that I can't go there and that they aren't being supportive.
Well, it's so hard that they don't understand that this is not your fault that you can't go there. You know what I mean? It's not that you don't care.
No, it's not that they think I care. It's just that my family is very cold. They don't care that I can't come there. And it's really frustrating to me because I have no way to connect with this whole process.
Oh, that's really hard. I'm sorry.
And I asked them to text me yesterday and they didn't. And I just feel, I'm just frustrated. I can't go out there.
Right.
I'm frustrated with their response, which is how they are. And I really miss my dad.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Sarah.
And
This
I
is
want to have
really
some
hard.
kind of closure or some kind of connection.
Yeah. 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 This is really, really, really hard. This is one of the hardest things about COVID is people dying alone and then not being able to be with our loved ones. And
Yeah.
oh, it's so hard. Yesterday, I visited a friend whose husband died 23 days ago. And, you know, I feel like saying, don't tell Jack. We were both wearing doubled masks. We looked away. I hugged her. That was my first hug of somebody who wasn't Jack, I
Yeah.
hugged her just because, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? It's just a human thing that we need to be able to be
Yeah.
together and hug each other and tell stories and listen. And, your family sounds pretty disengaged emotionally. So they don't think to include you,
That's right.
by FaceTime or, some other way that they could include you. But, one thing you might try to do with your frustration and your sorrow, your grief about this and your anger, you might actually just send a nice, if you can bring yourself to do it, a nice message saying, would it be possible to FaceTime and let me be part of the gathering so that
Yeah.
I can join in grieving our father?
Yeah. I can do that. I'm just trying to deal with the frustration in the moment. So I think the best thing for me is just to make room for it inside of me and just let it be there and just be aware of it and watch it and have some self-compassion for myself.
Exactly. The self-compassion is really important. Even
Yeah.
if it just takes the form of making yourself something yummy to eat, or do you know,
I know.
I'm
I
Jewish.
listened to Christine Neff's meditation today on self-compassion. That's a really
Beautiful.
great
Beautiful.
one. I just, yeah, I
It's-
just get frustrated with my family and I don't know what to do about it because it's but so.
That's who they are.
Yes.
It's just,
Right.
it's their loss. It's not about you.
Right.
But, I think this is really, really, it's really hard. It just really is. And I tell you that just so you know, it's not you. This is hard. Yeah. Thank you. And I think by telling us too, people are sending you love and caring about you in this situation. And so I really want to also celebrate your courage to talk when you're in the middle of it,
I know.
I know, but you're vulnerable, you're open, you're in the middle of it, you haven't sort of tied it up with a neat bow so you can talk about it without crying later. Your father died and you can't be there. And I'm so sorry. And I know we all are.
You got it, Trudy. Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck. Take care of yourself. I don't know. I wish I'll give you a hug, a virtual hug. How's that? Big hug. Okay. Yeah. So, oh gosh, it's time. We have to stop now. I'm sorry, Greg, we'll come to you next week. We'll make sure you're first next week if you still have your question. And Marguerite, I wrote down the name so I can tell Maria's mom about this wonderful coincidence we had this morning. That's great. And I wish you luck in grad school in Michigan.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really do. And I want to thank you, Caroline, I know when you're a student, you're still a sophomore? What are you now?
Yes, I'm still a sophomore.
Caroline's a sophomore at USC, and taking time to do this is I'm just really appreciate that you do.
Oh, thank
And
you.
do it in a beautiful way. So thank you for that. Ah, thank you, everybody. Everybody, I just want to tell you next week, Melissa McKay will be teaching. Some of you may know her. She's come before in the old days. And that's because I'm going to be around. I'm not going anywhere, but I'm getting my second vaccination. And it's just, we just don't know. You know, some people are getting sick from their second one. Some people don't feel a thing. But I thought just in case, I would have Melissa teach next week so that if for some reason I'm not feeling well, you know, I don't have to give you some kind of lame teaching from not feeling well. So I will miss you next week, and I look forward to seeing you the week after. Have a wonderful 2 weeks. Take good care of yourselves, and yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And also, are you going to stay for the breakout groups, Caroline? Can you do those?
Yes, breakout rooms will be starting at 12:42.
Okay, 10 minutes. And yeah, congratulations to everyone who's had a vaccination. I read in the paper that the happiest place in the world to be right now is at a vaccination site, because people are so grateful and they're so appreciative and they're so relieved. So yeah, goodbye everybody, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you, Trudy.
everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Trudy.
Another great session.
Thank you,
You're
Trudy.
welcome.
Everyone. Thank you,
Bye.
Trudy.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you all. Take good care of
Thank you,
yourselves.
Trudy.